Hello, chess friends, and welcome to Jozarov Chess Channel, and welcome to the thriller of the World Blitz Chess Championship in 2022. So we're now in the last round, and before the last round, Magnus Carlsen has half of the point more than Hikaru Nakamura and Jan Krzysztof Duda, which means he has to now win his game against Nodirbek Abdusattorov in order to become the World Blitz Chess Championship in 2022. Let's see now what happened. It was really incredible game. If, as I said, Magnus wins this game, he's the World Rapid and Blitz Chess Champion. Of course, Hikaru and Jan Krzysztof Duda are hoping that maybe Magnus slips somehow in this game. They're waiting in their games. We'll see now what will happen first of all in this game between Magnus Carlsen and Nodirbek Abdusattorov. It's really the epic derby. So here Magnus opened with the move e4. Nodirbek's response was e5, knight to f3, knight to c6, bishop to b5. We have the Rui Lopez on the board. a6, the Murphy defense, bishop to a4, knight to f6, and after move d3, b5, bishop to b3, and bishop to e7. We have really here this classical systems, really normal setup. So this is now the so-called Anderson variation. And now after move a4, of course, Magnus breaks now this small pawn chain that black built here, this space advantage on the queen side. Of course, the threat is a takes b5. That's why Nodirbek passes through, but leaves a little bit here also some light squares unprotected. So that's why Magnus, after castling uses now this moment and is hoping to get the c4 square. From this square he can get access to e3, f5, d4, and d5 and similar stuff. From this square, of course, he can reroute the knight in a beautiful way. So now d6 was played by Nodirbek. We have c3, not allowing also some outposts by black here in the center of the board. We have now rook to b8, and after rook to e1, now knight to a5. A beautiful move by Nodirbek. He is, of course, attacking the most powerful piece here, the most powerful minor piece of Magnus Carlsen's, of course, this light bishop on b3. Bishop to a2. We have now the move c5, getting some spaces on the queen side, and now after move d4, finally we get this normal goal, I think, of the Rui Lopez from white's perspective, this break and enter with the move d4. After b takes c3, b takes c3, we have now c takes d4 and c takes d4. Now Nodirbek challenges the pawn on d4 further, and now Magnus makes a huge decision in the center of the board. He locks the center, which becomes now, of course, a blocked out position in the center of the board. And this small pawn chain, this e4 d5 pawn chain, is actually showing that Magnus should attack this side of the board. On the other hand, black will try to get some ideas like in the King's Indian. If you're familiar with the King's Indian structures, then black would try maybe g6, f5 breakthroughs and similar stuff. Of course, white has this slightly space advantage, which means, of course, that you can have more squares for your pieces. But the downside, I think, about this move d5 is a little bit that you're blocked out your bishop on a2. So the bishop on a2 is a little bit paralyzed. So knight to b4 by Nodirbek, bishop to c4, knight to h5 here by Magnus Carlsen. If you try, of course, this kind of an idea, then after d takes e5, queen to h5, this wouldn't be possible because you get knight to c2 here, the fork. So it's not possible to do this kind of a tactic. You are tempted many times in this way when, of course, the knight is a little bit loose on the board. Then watch out for this knight to e5 tactics. But of course, as we said, this is not possible. So here Magnus locks further the queen side with the move a5. He's getting some spaces on the side where he's supposed to be better. Knight to f4 by Nodirbek, and now after move knight to f1, this was a very important move by Magnus. He wants to reroute the knight to e3, and from this square, of course, the knight is controlling the square c2. That's very important because now Nodirbek goes with an aggressive move, bishop to g4. After move knight to e3, notice that again bishop to f3, queen to f3 is very important to have as a resource because you are not vulnerable here around the square c2. In many occasions, the queen is a little bit overloaded to the defense of the c2, but also in order to defend the knight on f3. So that's why very important here move by Magnus Carlsen. So after move knight to e3 that Magnus Carlsen played, we have now moved bishop to h5. Here maybe a slightly better idea for Nodirbek would have been this resource, maybe f5. This I think would be beautiful because after e takes f5, notice that there is now here a little bit weak pawn on d5, so we would split here the pawn chain. Then of course you can go bishop to h5, we can of course take out this pawn, but I think this pawn structure is not so healthy anymore here of white, so maybe this was the way to go for Nodirbek. But here after move knight to e3, he plays bishop to h5, Magnus goes with rook to a3, and now after queen to c2, queen to c7, bishop to d2. Now finally I think Magnus has regrouped here. He's not allowing some knight to d3 ideas. He has a solid setup. He has always the opportunity opportunity to recapture with the queen here. And also, what the cool part is that finally he will try ideas of rook to c3 and maybe hitting also the queen on the c file. So here the continuation, Norderbeck goes with bishop to f3, and this was now maybe his really first mistake in the game. Maybe again this idea f5. I really love this idea f5 because again you cannot take with the knight to f5. It's not working because after rook to f5, e takes f5, we would have here a queen to c4 as a resource, so the bishop is hanging, so you're always overloaded here with this knight from to protect the f5 square, but also to protect your bishop on c4. So again, this is not working. Norderbeck, unfortunately for him, took now the knight on f3. We have now queen to f3. Now comes this idea knight to c2, but it's actually a little bit too slow, because after this trades of pieces, after this tactics that Norderbeck probably calculated, obviously the position gets more and more simplified, and I don't like anymore this dark square bishop's position. You see, okay, you've traded off more pieces, but actually this favors white. I think the bishop is much more powerful. White's bishop, the knight has always opportunities to reroute itself here, maybe to f5. The knight is again a little bit loose. You have an outpost, but this outpost will not stay there forever, will still have resources like g3. Of course you have to do something with your knight, but I think the minor piece activity of white's here is much better. So Magnus goes now knight to e3. We have a queen to d4, a rook to d1 by Magnus. Again, some threats to maybe move the bishop somewhere and attack the queen. Queen to c5, now knight to f5. Now the knight comes on a beautiful square, and now bishop to g5 by Norderbeck. He's getting in front of the knight here. It's always dangerous to do this kind of a thing, because there are probably some tactics with g3. Of course not immediately, because still there is this resource knight to h3, but as a long-term tactic you should be careful. But Magnus goes now into wild line h5, hitting the bishop again, bishop to f6. So you see, as we said, because of this dark square pawn chain d6 e5, black is here really bad position with the dark square bishop. In the continuation, rook to c3, hitting the queen, queen to a5. It doesn't matter, because now finally comes this idea g3, and Norderbeck has to again make a reaction with this knight. So after g3, you could maybe try knight to g6, but then I think the rook comes in a beautiful way into the game. Rook to c6. Look at this, occupying the 6th rank. There are always opportunities of h5, h6, so it's basically a one-way ticket here. Black is already lost. I think it's a bad here position for black. So here after move g3, what Norderbeck tried is this wild tactic, knight to d5, which is even worse, because Magnus first of all attacks the queen. The queen has to step back. Now again a new tempo against the queen, and now finally e takes d5. The knight is taken. Queen to b2. We have now again beautiful position here by Magnus. He keeps really his pieces glued together, compact here. On the queen side we have rook from f to d8, king to g2, queen to b5, rook to c6. Again the rook comes on a beautiful square, rook to e8, and now after move knight to d6, again the game is basically over. e4 was now the move, knight to e4, and in this position Norderbeck Abdulsatorov resigned, which means Magnus Carlsen is now also the World Blitz Chess Championship in 2022. He won the Rapid Chess Championship, he won the Blitz Chess Championship, and he is still the world champion in chess when it comes to classical time chess format. I think this shows that Magnus Carlsen is simply the best, and recently he said in one of his interviews, I'll stop when someone stops me, and that's exactly also the point here. He shows that he's still the best player in the world, and in blitz format, rapid, whatever you want to see, Magnus is destroying his competition. Really great performance again by Magnus Carlsen. I'm a little bit sad maybe that he will not play the forthcoming World Chess Championship, but that was his decision. He's showing again the world that I'm the best. I wait for you to make something in your games. I am simply still the best. You cannot compete with me. And you see, Hikaru Nakamura had maybe some chances in this event, but eventually it was Magnus who took this beautiful Blitz Chess Championship in 2022. So okay, congratulations again to Magnus. A really impressive performance. If you want to see some other games that we have covered from this event, check out also some cool games that we have covered by Magnus Carlsen and also by some other top grandmasters. What to say? See you soon with some more videos, and chess is the best, of course.